Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Jason Camp. I'm the CTO here at Circa Group. Today, I'd like to talk to you about how Circa has developed and brought to market a sustainable alternative to harmful solvents, and how the REACH process enabled Circa to engage with the conservative supply chain and bring millions of euros of investment to Europe. In fact, if it wasn't for ECHA, Circa wouldn't be here at all. ECHA is the reason our sustainable solvent exists, having regulated harmful chemicals to protect workers, consumers, and the environment. But the job's not done yet, as more needs to be done to encourage industry to adopt safer, more sustainable alternatives, because they do exist. Now let's talk in more detail about the sustainable solvent that we are providing to industry, tier 1 brands, and about our plans to deliver sustainable chemistry at scale in the next 2 to 5 years. Just to be clear, this is not just a talk about sustainable solvents that outperform more toxic alternatives. We're here to talk about the need to change how we do chemistry. Both regulation and market drivers demand it. Industry change has to happen. Net zero, circularity, and safety are in the process of becoming real business drivers. Circa is playing its part. Our vision is to become a leader in the sustainable production of bio-based chemicals for industrial applications. We are focused on delivering safer, low-carbon chemistry at scale. Now, what does this mean for you? We can help industry transition to a safer, more sustainable way of doing low-carbon chemistry with the ubiquity of solvents, meaning that we have scale and impact. Now, EU regulation is driving a once-in-a-generation upheaval of the chemical industry. This is exemplified by the EU Green Deal and its objectives, namely protecting citizens and the environment and boosting innovation for safe and sustainable chemicals. This is exactly what we do at Circa. The EU, via REACH and the Green Deal, are leading the way globally. To deliver on the EU's ambitious targets, regulations and enforcement must go hand in hand. Companies like Circa spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of euros, bringing new, better, safer products through the REACH process. This is a considerable risk for our investors, and we see the outcome as an asset that needs ongoing protection. Our understanding is that for toxic solvents like NMP and DMF, that bans will be fully enacted once suitable alternatives become available. Over the next few slides, I'll describe how Circa Group are providing sustainable alternatives at scale. Industry has largely relied on unsustainable petroleum-based solvents. These have a number of important problems. These large volume, well over 1 million tons per year, of traditional petroleum-based solvents such as NMP and DMF, which are toxic and unsustainable. In fact, they've been categorized as substances of very high concern in the EU and around the globe. As SVHCs, even if 0.1% of these compounds are in the final products, then the entire product needs to carry the SVHC label, and this may restrict its use. Now, regulations are pushing industry to solve this problem, and consumers and brands are demanding safer, greener alternatives. For example, first movers like Nike and Amazon are banning NMP and DMF from their entire supply chains. This industrial inertia is beginning to dissipate, but will it happen quickly enough? At Circa, we're enabling the transition to sustainable bio-based chemicals. Now, don't get me wrong, the chemical industry is essential, but it's unnecessarily harmful. As a chemical producing industry, we need to stop using unsustainable fossil fuel-based materials and invest in sustainable, less toxic alternatives. Circa produces more sustainable bio-based chemicals on scale, which provide all of the benefits of fossil-based chemicals without the substantial cost to humans and the environment. We do this by using non-food biomass waste, local, sustainable, and energy-efficient production processes. This leads to decreased carbon footprint of our products, producing a low toxicity solvent, and no harmful substances are released at the end of life. Just to give you a fuller picture of what we do at Circa Group, we convert abundant waste biomass into high-value bio-based chemicals. We take waste biomass, which is the world's most abundant renewable natural bioresource. We put that through our patented FeReSol process to make a platform molecule called LGO, levoglucosenone. LGO can be converted into a wide range of products, the first of which is our commercial product, Cyrene, that's being distributed around the world by companies like Merck and Will & Co. We're really meeting our ambition with this market-ready and proven solution, Cyrene. Just to talk about Cyrene in a little bit more detail, as we've discussed, solvents are under intense regulatory pressure worldwide due to their toxicity, with solvents dominating this market requiring EU authorization. Cyrene is a solvent that is more sustainable and less toxic than these fossil-based alternatives. It's scalable, it's made in an efficient two-step process from non-food waste cellulose. All of the testing done as part of our REACH Annex VIII authorization has come back and shown Cyrene to be of low toxicity. It's also sustainable, so independent life cycle assessment has shown that the FeReSol process is heading towards being greenhouse gas neutral. It's a market-tested product with well over 1,000 trials going out to consumers around the world. And from those trials, we've been able to find that it outperforms existing toxic solvents in about 20 to 30% of applications. So it's not just a sustainable alternative, it's a better alternative. Taking advantage of the low toxicity, sustainability, and performance of Cyrene, it's been used across a wide range of markets and applications. For example, in pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals, it can be used as a solvent to make the APIs or the AIs, in formulation as a dispersant for an AI onto a field, or even to recrystallize a drug to get the right polymorph. We look at graphene. It's one of the best solvents in the world for the production of graphene and its utilization in a variety of applications such as 2D and 3D printing. What we're starting to see now is crossover between these markets. So a highly concentrated Cyrene solution with graphene in it is being used in paints and coatings to make that paint anti-corrosive for marine applications. Now, if we delve into one of these markets in a little bit more detail, namely apparel and footwear, we see that there's a substantial toxicity and waste problems throughout the entire life cycle. 10% of global carbon emissions can be attributed directly to the fashion industry. The production of these materials uses toxic and flammable solvents, and the end of life of these products is mainly incineration and landfill. Now, regulations are coming into force, such as the restricting of use of DMF and NMP and listing it as a substance of very high concern. And EU countries have brought in legislation that require separation of textiles by 2025. This has really opened up a lot of opportunities in the space. Global brands, I should say, are removing toxic solvents from their supply chains. Sustainable apparel and footwear manufacturing is being investigated, and the development of scalable technology to recover these valuable fibers is underway. And in each of these areas, Cyrene has some really unique opportunities around the formation, for example, of polyurethanes, recycling of fibers, among other things. We're speaking with a number of companies in this space to really take advantage of the step change in this market that Cyrene allows away from toxic petroleum-based solvents. Now, scale is very important to what we do at Circa Group. We're proud that we're taking the next steps forward with our ReSolute plant, which is a 1,000-ton production plant of Cyrene that is being built in northern France. We started work in the end of 2020, with commissioning anticipated in Q1 of 2023. We use local non-food biomass feedstock for this project, and we'll be getting REACH Annex IX as part of this project, along with some of our partners here. It's the first of many projects, as we plan to have a capacity of well over 80,000 tons of Cyrene per year by 2030. Just very briefly, wanted to outline some of our experience with REACH and really to emphasize the point that REACH is our friend. We see a lot of positives around REACH. Without the restriction imposed on toxic solvents like NMP and DMF, Circa would not be where it is today. REACH was always a risk for Circa. That said, it provides market access and validate Cyrene in other regions. So some of the key positives we see around REACH are around regulations, specifically the SVHC labeling, and forcing change and substitution in industry. It also provides a due diligence assessment for Cyrene when engaging other jurisdictions and financiers. Some of the challenges around REACH, as we all know, are around the cost and the timing. Asking shareholders to part with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on an application with an unknown outcome is a very challenging conversation, especially for an SME. We should have had a great discussion this morning on how some of this risk can be mitigated. There's still more that we can do in order to drive further change in the chemical industry. Now, getting to net zero by 2050 equates to only 1 to 2 investment cycles. For us to meet 2030 and 2050 carbon reduction targets, solutions must be found within the next 1 to 2 technology cycles. With its proven technology and next plant in development, Circa is one of the few organizations capable of delivering a low toxicity, low carbon chemistry within 2 to 5 years. This positions Circa to help deliver the necessary transition from fossil-based chemicals. Our conversations with Tier 1 organizations with sustainability mandates have demonstrated the strong interest in Circa's market segments. We have identified 4 segments where there are immediate opportunities to reduce or remove toxic chemicals from the supply chain and to develop new and niche sustainable products. The chemical industry is changing. Organizations at all levels, including Tier 1 companies, have made public commitments to reduce the carbon intensity of their supply chains and the toxicity of their products. This means that suppliers have to step up now, but many are not ready. Chemical industry faces the challenge of phasing out solvents that damage workers' health, harm the environment, and are manufactured from polluting fossil resources. We see ECHA, and particularly the implementation of regulations, playing a major part of the Green Deal and net zero success. The EU has indicated that regulations will dictate this course of action as soon as there is a viable alternative at scale. Cyrene is a scalable, sustainable, and low toxicity alternative. And Circa is capable of scaling safer low carbon chemistry in the next 2 to 5 years, well within the 1 to 2 technology cycles needed for industry to transform. This is supported by our recent capital rising, which was oversubscribed, indicating the financial markets have a clear view of both the risk and opportunity in chemistry's low carbon future. Circa's vision is to be a leader in the sustainable production of bio-based chemicals for industrial applications. So whether it's in batteries, wind turbine blades, or running shoes, we are driven by the demand for safer and more sustainable chemicals. Circa is part of the transition to the sustainable circular economy that the EU is mandating, and we will help your organization on that path. My colleague, Sarah Hickenbottom, and I will be here for the Q&A and networking sessions, so please reach out to continue the conversation. I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thanks in advance for your time. Thank you.
Hello. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Sarah Hickenbottom. Jason just mentioned me. Unfortunately, Jason cannot be here himself. I'm General Manager at Circa Group and going to answer your questions today. Please feel free to ask any question you like. If we cannot reach it during the next sort of 10 minutes that we have, then there's LinkedIn, email, and of course, the rest of the event. We already have a couple of questions, so we can start with there. The first one's from Regina. What kind of biomass and waste is used for the manufacture of Cyrene? Excellent question, one of my favorites. Circa has spent a good many years absolutely optimizing the technology to produce Cyrene, the bio-based solvent, at scale. And our Furacell technology allows us to be feedstock agnostic. What that means is that whilst we tweak each plant to adapt to the feedstock in case, in different parts of the world, we can use the waste biomass that is the most readily abundant. So in Brazil, for instance, we might use sugarcane bagasse. In France, where we're building our first plant at this moment in time, we're using sawdust. We could also use perhaps sugar beet or wheat straw. In fact, once the economics are sorted, they're not there yet, there's no reason where we couldn't use household municipal solid waste. Chemicals can be made from all of these waste biomasses, and Circa is taking advantage, full advantage of that fact. So another question has been about the purity of Cyrene and its applications in energy. Well, Cyrene can be made at different purities. Indeed, like any solvent and chemical, we can further purify it when it's needed. Pharmaceuticals are indeed one of our core applications where naturally extremely high purity will be necessary. So yes, Cyrene is viable. Another question, moving on, if I look, it says, in terms of performance criteria, such as solubility parameters, how close is Cyrene to the solvents it's looking to replace? Great question, and it is remarkably close, but we should make it clear, Cyrene is not a drop-in. There are some applications where it will not be ideal, but as Jason said in his presentation, 20 to 30% of the applications that have been trialed to date, and that's well over 1,000 across many, many different end-use sectors. What happens is we find 20 to 30% actually outperform. And so it's those outperforming sectors that we're the most interested in targeting. We will need to work with engineering and other aspects of the value chain to create Cyrene as a replacement, but it's a great replacement. It's a technical replacement. And indeed, it has technical applications that we believe will be able to push processes to new areas because today's petrosolvents cannot do what Cyrene does. I can see another question asking about the current status of NMP. Well, NMP is a substance of very high concern, as Jason was saying in the presentation. In fact, ECHA and REACH and the European Union are talking about bans when alternatives are available. Obviously, these alternatives need to be safer, sustainable criteria and by design, as was being discussed this morning. And Cyrene is one of those alternatives. Low toxicity, sustainable. So indeed, enforcing that is going to be part of what we need, enforcing that NMP cannot be used when the alternative is viable. And I'll move on. Another question, definition of a solvent. Well, a solvent, gosh, I don't have an exact definition in my mind. It's used to facilitate reactions. Most chemistry takes place in solvents. It is often recyclable. And indeed, we have every reason to work with Cyrene as a recyclable solvent. We're working on that topic right now. I suggest, because this question, it's Philippe, if I've read it correct, you have quite an in-depth question. I don't think I can fully address it in this particular, in a couple of minutes I have left, but please do come to us and we'll discuss this in more depth in terms of what solvents are. We also have a poll, by the way, without sort of being in the room with you, it's difficult to know who exactly are with me today. If you are an end user, if you use solvents, then please do let us know. What's your biggest challenge? What would make you switch? Why wouldn't you switch? So I see another comment we have about NMP in industrial applications. The question is, in NMP, a component of plastic packages for electronic components, is Cyrene a possible alternative for such uses? Cyrene does have applications in the electronics sector. It can help with certain sort of high-tech applications. Plastic packages for electric components, that's one that I don't believe we've looked at in exact detail. You might need to come back to me, Lorenzo, and we'll discuss exactly what you're thinking. But yes, electronics is one of the high-end applications we are targeting. So if I scroll down the questions, I think I'm wondering if I have missed any. Do we have answers to the polls? Show results, I can see. Ah, yes, we do. So we have actively looking at alternatives, 50% of the audience that's answered the poll. Well, that's great to hear. Please do get in touch with us. My email address should be in the chat. My colleague Catherine will put it in if it isn't. And also LinkedIn, as I mentioned. Circa, we offer the alternative. And as has been said, I don't know if all of you were at the round table this morning, an awful lot of what was being said by Eka and being said by Cefic, and indeed everybody at the round table, is what we're working towards. That need to truly drive the how. 2050, it's 1 or 2 investment cycles away. We know what our aim is, but we have to work with the transition. And Cyrene and Circa are a tool to create that transition. We are well aware that Cyrene is not a drop-in, and so we are collaborating and working together with end users downstream so that we can ensure that you can switch to low toxicity, circular, bio-based, sustainable solvent to replace the toxic nature of NMP and DMF. Now we have a couple of minutes left. Actually, in the poll, there's roughly 40% of you have said that you are concerned, but you're not looking at alternatives. I would love to ask you, why not? I'll challenge you there. It might be an interesting question, because one thing to bear in mind is that obviously scale is absolutely critical to what we're doing. At Circa, we are building our 1,000 metric ton per annum Cyrene plant in the northeast of France. As mentioned, it's using sawdust. But we are targeting over 80,000 metric tons capacity by 2030. These plants will be located in different parts of the world, including bigger ones in Europe. And the reason I'm highlighting this point is that we are going to offer a sustainable solvent at high scale, the type of volumes that industry is needing. I see that an answer to the question I asked. Thank you very much. Very high-end use for solvents. The requirements are therefore very strict. Yes, I appreciate those. But do get in touch with us, because it may be one of the amazing things about Cyrene is that it is a multi-purpose solvent, and it can achieve a wide range of different technical capabilities. There hasn't been such a wide-ranging capable solvent developed for a number of decades. Now, there's only 1 minute left before the session finishes. As I said, please get in touch. Please be aware that bio-based chemicals do offer a future. We are focusing on safety. We are focusing on sustainability. And the likes of REACH and ECHA regulations, they're what we need in order to create that market driver so that we can apply at scale up and downstream the value chain. Thank you very much for attending today, and we look forward to talking with a lot of you in the weeks to come.